We're here at the second annual Global Business Forum, Mike. What's changed since the first in terms of global business? Is it better? Is it worse?
Well, I would prefer that the world laughed with us than laughed at us. But yeah, things have changed. The tariff war is starting. Hard to see how it doesn't continue or even grow worse. Wasn't there a year ago. But I think the fundamental things of the public worrying about technology taking away their jobs, not understanding the environmental challenges we have, those kinds of things were there a year ago. They were there 2 or 3 years ago. They influenced the last presidential election. They'll influence this midterm election. They'll influence the 2020 election.
No, as you suggest, I mean, we have climate, we have technology, but really, what has changed to some degree is trade. We saw that yesterday in the United Nations. A lot of talk about trade, a lot of restrictions, whether it's China, whether it's sanctions against Iran or whatever. How much is the United States hurting itself? There's a new report of the ECB that says actually the United States will hurt the most.
Right. No, I think the United States will get hurt. You got to understand, China is so big that anything you do to China has a minimal impact on the country and only on a long-term basis. There are an awful lot of people in China that don't buy American products. There's 500 million people in China that still haven't come out of poverty, and they're not affected by any of this. Government social programs actually do better in down markets and down times because they don't get cut, whereas anything that you have in the private sector may go down in value, and your pension funds may be less because you have investments and they don't have that. So I think it is fundamentally different. It is very worrisome. And regardless of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, this is just a failure of our government. And maybe we should look in the mirror. It's a failure of ourselves to not demand more from our elected officials.
And yet, does the Trump administration have a point when it comes to China? China has been restrictive in trade.
Everybody agrees that China has done a lot of things that aren't fair. And administrations going back, both Republican and Democrat, have not done anything about it. It's not that Donald Trump is wrong in fighting it. It is the ways he's fighting it, because, number one, it doesn't work. He puts people on the other side in a situation where they can't cave. They have their domestic and family to worry about. And the second thing is he's just going after the wrong things. We need to have access to their markets. We need to be able to go over and open companies and compete. We don't need to stop them from selling us products. Quite the contrary. If they want to sell us products at a lower price than we can produce them ourselves, our consumers benefit from that. But we've got to make sure that our workers don't get hurt by that. And they don't get hurt if you create other jobs and other markets for us to sell our goods into. And so if you block one thing, they're going to block the other. And no matter where you work, you're going to get hurt.
So how long can this go on, particularly the dispute with China, before permanent changes are made? Whether it's companies changing their supply lines, or whether it's, for that matter, China reaching out to Asia and other trading partners, and there be permanent damage?
Well, companies are very flexible. They're already opening plants and offices in other countries that are outside of the American-Chinese battle. They're already readjusting their pricing and how they manufacture. Their supply chains can change literally in the middle of the night. They send a message to the ship, go here rather than go there with the parts that you've got, that we need them in a different plant. It's much harder for us to change what you do when you annoy people, when you antagonize people, when you make enemies, where it's hard to one day say they're bad and the next day say they're good.
Given the problems that we face, the challenges, let me put it that way, we face, is it time for another business leader? I mean, we have one in the White House now, but I mean, you recently said that you were not going to decide about the presidency until after the midterms. I assume that hasn't changed.
Well, I don't think we have a business leader now. Donald Trump is a real estate promoter, and I don't know whether he's good or bad. He built a lot of real estate or owns a lot of real estate, a lot of golf courses. But he's not a businessman in the sense that he has run a big organization, how you work together, how you attract good people, how you adjudicate disagreements, how you deal with other companies, in this case, other governments, and it shows. And maybe Clinton and a little bit Bush, they had some management experience. But you got to understand that all of these, the top jobs, these are executive jobs. They're not about policy. We keep asking them about policy, but policy is going to be set by advisors they bring in, because nobody can be an expert on all of these things. The job is to manage, in Trump's case, 4 million people who work for the federal government. And that's not his expertise.